Today's video is about YOURLS, and that's actually an acronym, as you would have just seen now. If you looked at those little red letters that came up in the title, it stands for Your Own URL Shortener. So what is it actually? It's a self-hosted alternative to things like Bitly and TinyURL, which are quite well-known shortener services. This is obviously extremely lightweight. It's, literally just the little bit of text that it's storing, so it's not a very heavy thing to host at all. They can be public or private, so you can offer it as a equivalent of Bitly and let everybody publish links and so on, but that's going to come with the risks and the issues around people spamming it and using it also sort of for negative purposes as well. Or you can use it for private purposes. Quite a few people do use services like this on their intranet, whether at home or in an office environment or anything like that, where there's lots and lots of different links to different HR documents and sources or whatever the case is. And of course, you can also track which ones are most used when, that sort of thing. So it's got some quite interesting uses. My own one is public. It is for public use, but it requires a login for the admin screen where you add the shortener links. So in other words, you're not going to actually see what I'm going to show you today. Is you're not going to see this sort of view. What will happen is if you look below the video anyway, I'm going to have all the links for the video there. But those links will be making use of this shortener service that I'm talking about today. But you'll see if you take the link portion off the end, you're not going to really see anything unless you can actually log in. But it's publicly usable. In other words, if I share those links or you share those links, it will resolve and take you to whatever the site is. What's also interesting with YOURLS is it is very extensible with plugins, and we'll have a quick look at that sort of near the end of the video, but you can really extend quite a lot of extra functionality with those plugins. It's got browser bookmarklets. These are little things you just drag onto the browser toolbar to do certain useful things. We'll have a look also at some of the statistics that you can see for the use of your shortener service or the links. And then it's also got a developer API, and I've said here, for example, Make. I use Make quite a lot for my social media posting and replication of posts across different services. So that API can also be accessed from within Make to do certain things. For example, I could get it to substitute and use my shortener service in every media post that I do. But there's various other services that also support the API, or and if you've written anything custom, you can do the same thing really. And then one of the reasons why you may want to consider using it is, like I said in my previous video, where something that I put up to Pastebin was repeatedly marked as spam and I never got my post or my paste out in the end. Bitly and TinyURL are often blocked by various services because it's often misused for spam and other purposes. What happens is that sometimes you'll find those links are not usable, or they'll be blocked by certain browsers or certain services. So you'll have a Bitly link, somebody will try click on it and it doesn't work. People also don't like seeing Bitly links sometimes because, again, it's often used for things like spam and phishing attacks. So when they see a Bitly link, they're not too sure where it's going to actually go to. So in the case there where you're using your own URL for the URL shortener service, like I am, it doesn't sort of raise any of those red flags. When somebody sees the link, they're not sort of suspecting it. Well, I'm not going to use it for that sort of thing, but it's not going to be suspected to be sort of a Bitly spam link or something like that. That really is the sort of interesting reason why I'm using it. Let's just sort of get onto it and have a look and see what it does, and then all will become clear and it'll make more sense, I think. So this is actually the admin view that the admin or whoever's got access to the service is going to see. And I will mention it again a bit later, but once you've installed it, you don't just type in your URL or your domain name. You actually do need to put a /admin. Otherwise, you do not get to the login screen. So I'll go through the menus and so on just now. I think let's just start off with the links themselves first. This is a link that's already been created, and it is the link that will be below the video because it links to the YOURLS Docker Compose file, which I'm sharing. On the left, you'll see the short URL that will be part of the short link. The original URL is over here, the longer one. And this obviously gets very useful if you're using things like, say, private bin, where you've got nearly 100 character long link. Then a short URL service becomes essential. There's a short little description above it just to remind you here, what is the short link for. There's the date the link was created. There's the last IP address that accessed it. and I'll come back to that just now when we look at the stats part. How many clicks have happened already with this link? And you've got a couple of actions here on the right hand side, and what I'll have a look at first is, let's just look at editing this link. This is going to be the same as creating the link over here. If you were to create your link, you're going to type the long URL in or paste it there, and then just give it that custom short URL name over there and click on shorten. That's going to create your link for you. But let's look at edit, because it's sort of shows you really what's in there. So if I were to edit this link now, I could either replace the long URL, which I've had to do once or twice as I've switched backend services for my paste bin and private bin. That's quite nice, because whoever's using the short URL or wherever it's been shared already, it's not aware that the back link has actually changed. So again, another extra use for using a shortener service. You don't have to go and update all your social media posts and so on as well. But like I said, if you want to change that long URL, you could change your short URLs if you wanted to as well, but that would break things. And the title is the description there that you would type in. And that really is it. Then you would just click your save or whatever the case is. But I think let's go and have a look at the one or two other features you've got here per link then. Oh, and I could also just show you here, you can of course resort these links as well by, either the short URL link name, the original link, the date, in other words, the newest or the oldest, IP address, and clicks are quite interesting. So if I was to take a sort of a more busily used one, which is this link that I've got here for my Docker Compose for the CirxNG search engine, then we can go and have a look at the stats for that one. It's got about 74 clicks already. And you'll see here, you've got the number of hits for the last 7 days, and you can see how many hits there were. You can have a look at the all-time. It's obviously when the video was published there. It gives you the historical click count here on the right as well. And you can also expand that further by month and so on as well. Quite interesting though for me often is the location. Oops, now I see that the color is causing a bit of a problem here. You can't see it very well. Sorry for the glare now. But you can see there, thanks Germany, 74% of my clicks came from German viewers actually. And you can see there, Germany, USA 10, Australia 1, India 1. So that gives you an idea of where the countries are that people came from. It's just taking a guess really from an IP address. So wherever you've got your VPN terminating, that is what's going to appear there. See, there's more information. Okay, there's a breakdown. I hadn't looked at that before, but there's a nice breakdown by country. Traffic sources, if it's got, sometimes it'll say, so here it does say YouTube 3. And then of course you can also just click to share your link as well. And it by default shares to X and Facebook, neither of which I use. But that really is sort of the stats that you get. There's a plugin that gives slightly more detailed stats as well, but I don't really want anything more than that, so that's actually fine. And you just go back to admin interface up the top here. And I think, let me just change this color back. There we go. That does look better. You've got some sort of overall stats up the top here as well, just telling you how many URLs you've got, how many clicks there are, and counting. And then this is really your main menu up the top. So the admin interface is where we were already. I think before we go up to look at the menus, let's just have a quick look how you search for links. Like if you've got a couple of hundred links and so on. At the bottom here, you'll see there's a little search field as well. And you can say search for, let's just put in Da Vinci. You can tell it what to search in, all fields, short URL, title, IP, whatever the case is. You can tell it what to sort by and descending or ascending, how many rows. And you can also filter on dates and so on as well. And you can even sort by number of clicks to see how busy it is. But let's just say Da Vinci and more than one click. I'll say search. That is what it brings back. That is really how you'll search if you've got lots and lots of links. Quite useful way of just finding and filtering what you're looking for. And you can still, of course, on the right-hand side, apply whatever you need to do there. So let's just go back to that admin interface with everything on. So on the menus, this is really your menus that you've got now. Depending on what plugins you've added, you'll see that they appear here under managing of plugins or appear under plugins. Let's just have a look at the tools quickly. this is what I was talking about with the bookmarklets. They tell you here what you can do with bookmarklets. And really, it's just a question of dragging some of these things onto your browser toolbar. And then you can actually use them to generate short links directly from in the browser without even opening up the app or anything. And it's the same with the social bookmarks. If you drag those on there, you'd be able to use them to quickly create a short link and share it to X or Facebook or Tumblr. Again, that also can depend on the plugins that are installed. That's my link over there, but like I said, if you go to it, it's going to give you an error. Well, you can do the /admin, but you need to be able to log in there to get in there. So that is the main tools menu. Then we can just have a look at the help menu. There's quite a lot of information here on the help menu. Basically, the about tells you what I've already told you about the acronym, some of its features. Just gives you some screenshots and other information as well over there. The install and upgrade, again, it's instructions on how to install and links to click through to the installation and so on. The config is quite interesting if you've configured your own self-hosting site. This gives you a bit of a breakdown of sort of further and additional information as well about some of the settings. There is the plugins. This is the API, and it gives you sort of instructions on how to use the API here. You know, you can go through that information there in more detail if it's something that you want to make use of. And they've got a couple of sort of frequently asked questions and yeah, more information, you know, to community and resource links and so on. You'll get this actually if you've installed it yourself. So I think let's just go back to the plugins and really look through that. That's the last thing I really want to show. So if we look here at plugins, let's just start off with manage plugins. This essentially shows you what plugins you've got installed. And I've got a couple. If you look on the right here, you can see also if they are active, you can deactivate them. And I think some that are not bold are not enabled. You see on the right there, it says activate. So this is where you can activate and deactivate. Just a tip here, if something is breaking your system, which I did find, for example, when I tried to load the theming ones, they don't seem to be working properly. All you've got to do is go to where your configs are saved for your Docker container. You find the plugins folder and you just delete that particular plugin by its name. Just delete that subfolder, the actual plugin folder for that plugin. And you'll find, whoop, everything is back to normal again. So that's the one way. Then I can maybe just sort of mention one or two things about the ones that I'm actually doing. This one to allow hyphens, just otherwise it doesn't allow hyphens in the name, and it's showing you there with a hyphen. Don't log bots. I don't want to see bots as part of the click stats. I've got the download plugin. Oh, and I'm going to come back to a tip on the download plugin just now because it's got a php-zip that you need to install, and that doesn't go well in the beginning. So I have got the sort of the trick to get that to work. The GeoIP update plugin is not actually working properly for me at the moment. Well, I've got login timeout. I've got the popular links page we can have a look at before we go and look at the list of plugins. The random backgrounds is what you see here on the sides and so on as every time you change the page. I'm not making use of the random short URLs. That'll be the ones that instead of giving it a custom name, it will just allocate something for you. The rescrub, it just sort of cleans it up, the expired links and that sort of thing as well. These are samples. The URL check I turned off. It worked. It basically just checks to see if it's a valid URL before you save it. But I found it was tripping up on some of my own gadgeteer.co.za links. So I just decided to turn it off. It's, you don't really need it, I suppose. The import export just helps you save your stuff to JSON or CSV format, and especially if you want to maybe reconstruct it elsewhere, you're changing products or you want to restore your URLs or anything. The toolbar, I don't know what it does. It didn't seem to really work for me. Let's just have a look up here quickly. So the popular links is a plugin, and if you click on that, all it's doing is it's really showing you the sorted list of popular URLs last 30 days, 7 days, and last day. I think the rest is okay. I can show you the download plugin. So what happens with the download plugin? We'll go and look. When we look at all the plugins now, you'll see most of the plugins are saved at GitHub. So what you do is the plugin that you're interested in, you just copy that link from the GitHub site for the plugin, You paste it in over here by URL, stick to master, and you could optionally give the zip that downloads it in a zip file. You could give it a name, but I don't really worry with that because anyway I say to it delete zip after unzip. And this works very nicely actually to test and install the plugins. You just paste it in, you say download, and it'll appear up here. It's installed and it's ready to use. Apart from the fact that, as I said, the download plugin's got a little challenge of its own. Let's go and have a look then at the various plugins. At the bottom of your Manage Plugins page, you'll see there is a link here saying plugin list, and that is going to take us to the GitHub site with the plugin list. I'll maybe just go in here again so we can see. So just to give you an idea, this is where the plugins start. So just bear in mind as well with these plugins, unfortunately some of them are old and out of date. So you'll have to install and check and see if it works, and if it doesn't, then uninstall it. I'm just going to sort of go down here fairly quickly, and if you want to slow down, you can go back. There's going to be a link to this page anyway below the video as well. But it does just give you an idea of, the sheer amount of plugins. There is actually quite a lot. Or you can skip this part to the next part of the video. QR codes as well for sharing links, that's quite handy. Captures, that's obviously if you've got a public one. Telegram. Wallabag as well, the Read It Later site. And that's really it. Yeah, themes, none of them are actually working for me, quite honestly. Mainly because I see that trying to take me back. Seems to be almost that they are looking to work with the public landing page. If you've got that enabled for your site, then I think this might work, because it keeps trying to redirect to there all the time. I'm only working on the admin page, so that's obviously not working so well for me. Okay, so that is really the plugins. And I've shown you how one or two plugins work. Let's just have a look quickly then at that fix for the download plugin. Because what's going to essentially happen is the moment you've installed the download plugin, it's going to say to you, and you just do it by copying it into that plugins folder, it's going to say to you that it needs the zip manager, and without zip it can't operate. So yeah, unfortunately it can't be installed with the plugin. It's got to be installed sort of in the container itself. So you've got to install zip manually, PHP zip. So as I said, it's going to require PHP-zip to be installed. And you've got to install that in your container itself, not on the host system that's running. And in essence, what I've also discovered is this got reversed. So I'm not sure if it is if you restart the container. I would have expected it's actually more if you update your container, you've pulled a new container, this is going to get overwritten. So you will have to maybe redo this again. I've had to redo it once already. But this is the shortcut. So the easiest way often to do this is I log in normally securely into my host system's operating system. You can do this through Portainer. So if you've got Portainer, you could also drop into the console, and then you would just have to run this stuff in white over here. Then you wouldn't need the stuff that I've put in orange at the moment. But why I've got the orange is because from the host system, you can run docker exec -it and then the name of your container, and then it'll execute that command from the host side. It'll run it as if you're running it in the container. And all I'm running is, you can't install by default on Debian inside the container. It'll say to you something about the package can't be found, something like that. In essence, all that really is that is inside /etc apt preferences.d. There's a file called no-debian-php. You've got to remove that file. You just delete it. So this is all that file, this command is doing, rm for remove, and remove that file. That file's now gone. Then you just need to run a apt-get update just to refresh the Debian. Otherwise, it's not going to find the packages and so on and so forth. And then you've got two things to install. You'll run apt-get install-y libzip-dev. That is a requirement for the PHP zip file. Run that first to install it, and then you just run, and this is for Docker, remember now. You run that command again and you say docker-php-ext-install and space zip. That will install the PHP zip. And then you're actually good to go. You just need to restart the Apache server. And I see I've neglected to put that command on the bottom. I will put it in during editing. I'll put it in over here for you. But you just need to run that to restart the Apache server so it picks up these changes. And you'll see those errors and messages will disappear and your download plugin should work perfectly after that. And I have just explained there at the bottom, you run those commands in orange. It's intended to be run from the host. And that actually really is it. There's not very much more to say without drilling into lots of deeper detail, how YOURLS works. It's a fairly simplistic application, nice and easy to use. It seems to be pretty rock solid so far as I've seen. And the last 2 or 3 or 4 videos I've been putting out, I've actually been using these links, some of these links you can see, for access to, the things that I've talked about, the Docker Compose and that sort of thing. So click on them, see what happens. It should be working fine. It pairs very nicely, as I've said, with private bin or microbin if you're self-hosting it, or anywhere else. If you've got to point to any long, complicated links, a shortener service is great. And if you host it yourself, well, it's up and running. It's going to be there as long as you need it. And it shouldn't be blocked or have any spam issues from any other services either. So I hope you found that sort of some interest. And stay safe out there. And thanks for watching. I'll see you in my next video.